All right, today we're jumping right into a wild story. We're talking high-stakes finance, global sanctions, and a brand new kind of power play happening in the digital world. This is all about the Great Stablecoin Freeze.
So let me ask you something. How do you make $182 million just disappear? Poof. Gone.
Now, it sounds like some kind of magic trick, right? But it's not. This actually happened. On January 10th, 2026, the stablecoin giant Tether, they did it. They made it all vanish. And you know what the craziest part is? All it took was a single click. Okay, so this wasn't some random glitch. Nope. This was a carefully coordinated $182 million freeze, and it was all aimed at one single really mysterious target. As you can imagine, this set off an absolute firestorm of speculation.
So let's get into the details. What exactly went down? Well, $182 million in USDT, that's Tether's stablecoin, was frozen solid. The money was spread out across 5 different digital wallets. You can just think of those as super secure online bank accounts, but for crypto. Now, here's the really important part. All of this was happening on the Tron network. That's a blockchain that, well, it's got a bit of a reputation for being used in some shady activities. And the number one theory floating around? The target here was the government of Venezuela.
But why Venezuela? To really get why they were the likely target, you have to understand the tech involved. And that brings us to this idea of a sanctioned dodger's lifeline, and what a lot of experts call the dual-use problem of digital dollars.
Okay, so first things first, let's do a quick refresh just in case. What even is a stablecoin? It's pretty simple, really. It's a crypto coin that's built to hold a steady value because it's pegged to something real, usually the US dollar. So for all intents and purposes, you can just think of it as a digital dollar.
And this whole dual-use thing, there's a quote from Ari Redboard at TRM Labs that just nails it. He said, "The issue isn't Tether itself, but the dual-use reality of stablecoins. They can be a civilian lifeline and, under sanctions pressure, a tool for evasion." I mean, that's it in a nutshell, right? The very same tool can be used to help people survive or to help criminals break the law.
And Venezuela is the perfect example of this in action. On one hand, you had regular, everyday citizens using stablecoins as an absolute lifeline to escape the country's insane hyperinflation. But on the other hand, you had the state-run oil company PDVSA using those exact same stablecoins as a tool to get around US sanctions. And we're talking big money. They were generating up to 80% of their revenue this way. So yeah, same coin, 2 totally different worlds.
So this begs the question, who is actually policing this new digital Wild West? Well, that brings us to the crypto crime fighters. And it's this really powerful partnership between private companies all working to bring some law and order to the blockchain.
So back in September of 2024, 3 major players, Tether, Tron, and the analytics firm TRM Labs, they all teamed up. They formed something called the T3 Financial Crime Unit. Their whole mission? Go after illicit activity using digital assets. And man, have they been effective. In their first year alone, they froze over $300 million.
But here's where the story gets even bigger. That freeze in Venezuela? It wasn't a one-off thing. Turns out it was just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. And as investigators started putting those pieces together, it led them to a huge global pattern. And all signs were pointing directly at Iran.
And look, the scale of this problem, it's just mind-boggling. In 2025, the total amount of illicit crypto activity hit a record $158 billion. With a B. And what's wild is that this completely reversed a 3-year trend where things were actually getting better.
So where's all this dirty money actually going? Well, this chart from the folks at Chainalysis tells a pretty clear story. A staggering 84%, almost all of it, of the illicit transaction volume in 2025 was done using stablecoins. They have, without a doubt, become the currency of choice for criminals and anyone trying to dodge sanctions.
When investigators dug even deeper into the Iran connection, they uncovered this incredibly sophisticated operation. It was being run by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. We're talking about them moving roughly $1 billion since 2023, funneling it through 2 exchanges registered in the UK called ZTAX and ZZaction. And guess what? Nearly all of it was in Tether's USDT, and it was all on the Tron network. The whole scheme is believed to be the brainchild of the notorious sanctions financier Babak Zanjani.
You know, TRM Labs has a name for this. They call it a more mature risk. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? Well, it's because this isn't just a few criminals doing random stuff anymore. No, this is a state-sanctioned military organization running its own crypto infrastructure. It's woven right into the global markets. It's systematic, it's huge, and frankly, it's a whole new level of threat.
So all of this crackdown on the bad guys, it's actually setting the stage for what you could call the Great Stablecoin Showdown. A brand new financial battlefield is opening up, and you've got these massive players all fighting for control.
Okay, let's look at the tail of the tape between the two heavyweights. Tether's USDT and Circle's USDC. Now, if you just look at market cap in 2025, USDT looks like the clear winner, right? 187 billion versus 74 billion. But, and this is a huge but, when you look at how much they're actually used, it's a completely different story. Check out the transaction volume. USDC processed over $18 trillion. That's $5 trillion more than Tether.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty simple, actually. Market size, it isn't everything. Not even close. When it comes to how useful these digital dollars are in the real world, especially for stuff like decentralized finance or DeFi, usage is king. And in that kingdom, USDC is clearly wearing the crown.
But just when you think you know the main players, a new contender steps into the ring. Meet USD1. This stablecoin was launched in 2025 by a company called World Liberty Financial, which, interestingly enough, was founded during the Trump election campaign, and its growth was just explosive. It hit a $3.5 billion market cap by the end of its first year. Then in January 2026, it got even more powerful by launching its own platform for lending and borrowing.
And all of this, it brings us to one final, really crucial question. You have governments and companies cracking down harder than ever. At the same time, you have these new, politically connected giants jumping into the fray. So, who is ultimately going to control the future of the digital dollar? Because whoever wins that fight, they're not just winning a market, they're defining the next chapter of global finance.